Marcus Blackwood froze in the doorway, his hand still gripping the cold brass handle as he watched his 7-year-old son Tommy kneel beside their maid Sophia, both with heads bowed and eyes closed. The words that escaped Tommy's innocent lips shattered something deep inside the billionaire's chest. Please, God, make my daddy's heart not hurt anymore and help him smile like he used to. Before we continue, if you enjoy powerful stories about unexpected human connections, make sure to click that subscribe button. This is the best way for you to support our work. Thank you very much, and let's continue. Marcus had built an empire worth $12 billion. He owned skyscrapers in Manhattan, luxury resorts across 3 continents, and enough real estate to house a small city. But standing there in his son's bedroom, watching this 26-year-old woman with warm brown eyes and gentle hands teaching his boy to pray for a father who had forgotten how to be one, Marcus felt poorer than he'd ever been in his life. The Blackwood mansion sat like a monument to success on 40 acres of manicured Connecticut countryside. Its marble floors had been walked by presidents and prime ministers. Its walls displayed art worth more than most people's lifetime earnings. Yet for the past 2 years, since his wife Catherine's death in that devastating car accident, the house had felt like nothing more than an expensive mausoleum where 2 broken souls tried to avoid their grief. Marcus had thrown himself into work with the fury of a man running from his own shadow. 16-hour days became 18, then 20. Board meetings bled into conference calls that stretched past midnight. He acquired companies like other men collected baseball cards, each new acquisition a temporary distraction from the hollow ache that had taken residence where his heart used to be. Tommy, meanwhile, had become a stranger in his own home, raised by a rotation of nannies who came and went like the changing seasons. Then Sophia Martinez arrived. She hadn't come through the usual channels. Most of their domestic staff was hired through elite agencies that specialized in serving the ultra-wealthy. But Marcus's assistant had found Sophia through a local church recommendation after their latest nanny quit without notice. Sophia was different from the beginning. She carried herself with quiet dignity, her dark hair always pulled back in a simple ponytail, her clothes modest but impeccably clean. She had emigrated from Colombia 5 years earlier, working multiple jobs to support her elderly mother and send money to her younger siblings back home. What struck Marcus most about Sophia wasn't her obvious beauty or her excellent references. It was the way Tommy's face lit up when she walked into a room. The boy who had barely spoken above a whisper for months suddenly began chattering about his day, asking questions, even laughing at her gentle jokes. Sophia treated Tommy not like the heir to a fortune, but like what he truly was, a lonely little boy who missed his mother and barely knew his father. Marcus tried to maintain his distance. Sophia was an employee, nothing more. He issued instructions through his assistant and communicated in brief professional exchanges when their paths crossed, but he couldn't help noticing small things. How she hummed softly while she worked, filling the oppressive silence that had settled over their home. How she had quietly moved a photograph of Catherine from the mantel to Tommy's bedside table, understanding without being told that the boy needed his mother's memory close. How she had gradually coaxed Tommy out of his shell, taking him to the garden to plant vegetables, teaching him to bake simple cookies, reading him stories with different voices for each character. The changes in Tommy were impossible to ignore. The boy who had been failing at his expensive private school suddenly began improving. His teacher, Mrs. Henderson, called to report that Tommy was participating in class discussions and had made his first friend in over a year. At home, Tommy's nightmares decreased from nightly occurrences to rare episodes. He began eating full meals instead of picking at his food like a bird. But it was more than just practical improvements. Tommy was becoming himself again. Marcus caught glimpses of the bright, curious child he remembered from before the accident. The boy who used to pepper his parents with endless questions about everything from why the sky was blue to how airplanes stayed up in the air. The child who had once been so full of joy that Catherine used to joke he had sunshine in his veins. Marcus knew he should have been grateful for Sophia's positive influence on his son. Instead, her presence filled him with a complicated mixture of relief and resentment. Relief because Tommy was healing. Resentment because someone else was providing the comfort and guidance that should have come from him. Every small victory in Tommy's recovery felt like evidence of Marcus's own failure as a father. The guilt was a living thing that gnawed at him constantly. He knew Tommy needed him, but every time he looked at his son, he saw Catherine's eyes staring back at him. The same warm hazel color, the same long lashes, the same expression of innocent trust. It was like being stabbed with love and loss simultaneously, and Marcus had become a master at avoiding that pain by simply avoiding his son. Work provided the perfect escape. There was always another deal to close, another crisis to manage, another meeting that absolutely couldn't be postponed. Marcus told himself he was building Tommy's future, securing his inheritance, ensuring the boy would never want for anything. But deep down, he knew he was just running from the truth. that his son needed a father more than he needed a fortune. 3 months after Sophia's arrival, Marcus was forced to confront just how estranged he had become from his own child. He returned home earlier than usual one Thursday evening, intending to grab some documents from his study before flying to London for a weekend merger meeting. As he climbed the grand staircase, he heard voices coming from Tommy's room. Marcus paused outside the door, his hand hovering over the handle. Through the crack, he could see Sophia sitting cross-legged on the carpet while Tommy built an elaborate castle with his blocks. They were deep in conversation, Tommy's voice animated in a way Marcus hadn't heard in years. "Why do you think my daddy doesn't like me anymore?" Tommy asked, his small hands carefully placing a wooden tower on his creation. The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. He pressed himself against the wall, heart hammering as he waited for Sophia's response. "Oh, sweetheart," Sophia's voice was infinitely gentle. "Your daddy loves you more than anything in the whole world. Sometimes, when grown-ups are very sad, they forget how to show their love properly. Is he sad because Mommy went to heaven?" "Yes, baby. He misses her very much, just like you do." Tommy was quiet for a moment, concentrating on his blocks. Then he said, "I wish he would hug me like you do. Your hugs make me feel safe." Marcus closed his eyes, feeling tears he hadn't shed since Catherine's funeral threatening to spill over. When had he last hugged his son? When had he last told Tommy he loved him? When had he last been present for anything other than signing permission slips and writing checks? "Would you like to know a secret?" Sophia asked. "When I was a little girl and I felt scared or sad, my grandmother taught me something special. That always helped." "What?" "She taught me to pray for the people I love even when they're too hurt to ask for help themselves. Like my daddy. Especially like your daddy. Want me to show you?" Marcus felt his throat constrict as he watched. His son nodded eagerly. Sophia took Tommy's small hands in hers and bowed her head. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the quiet house, every word reached Marcus with perfect clarity. "Dear God, please help Tommy's daddy remember how much love he has in his heart. Help him find his way back to being the wonderful father. We know he is inside. Give him strength to heal from his sadness and courage to open his heart again. And please let him know that Tommy loves him no matter what. Amen." "Amen," Tommy repeated solemnly. Then, with the matter-of-fact wisdom that children sometimes possess, he added, "I think God will help him. Abuela Sophia, can we pray for Daddy every night?" "Of course we can, little one. Love is the most powerful prayer of all." Marcus backed away from the door on unsteady legs, Sophia's words echoing in his mind. He made it to his study before the sobs overtook him, 24 months of suppressed grief finally breaking through the barriers he had built around his heart. He wept for Catherine, for the future they would never have, for the father he had failed to be, and for the son who loved him despite everything. That night, instead of flying to London, Marcus called his assistant and canceled the entire trip. He sat in his study until dawn, staring at photographs of his family and trying to remember who he used to be before success and tragedy had transformed him into a stranger in his own home. The next morning, Marcus made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of leaving for the office at his usual 6 a.m., he knocked softly on Tommy's bedroom door at 7:30, just as Sophia was helping the boy get dressed for school. "Daddy," Tommy's face was a mixture of confusion and hope that nearly broke Marcus's heart all over again. "Good morning, son. I was wondering if you'd like me to drive you to school today." Tommy's face transformed with pure joy. "Really? You want to drive me?" "I'd like that very much." As they walked to the garage together, Tommy chattering excitedly about his upcoming science project on volcanoes, Marcus caught Sophia's eye. She gave him a small, encouraging smile that somehow managed to convey both understanding and forgiveness. The drive to school was a revelation. Tommy pointed out every landmark along their route as if Marcus had never seen them before. He explained the complex social dynamics of second grade with the seriousness of a United Nations diplomat. He asked Marcus about his work, displaying a genuine curiosity that made his father realize how much intelligence and personality had been developing right under his nose. When they arrived at school, Tommy hesitated before getting out of the car. "Daddy, will you pick me up too?" "I'll be here at 3 o'clock sharp," Marcus promised. That afternoon, Marcus was waiting in the pickup line 15 minutes early. He watched other parents chatting while they waited, many of them nannies or babysitters, but some fathers, like himself, who had chosen to prioritize this small but crucial part of their children's lives. When Tommy spotted the familiar black Mercedes, his entire face lit up with a smile that made every business deal Marcus had ever closed pale in comparison. Over the following weeks, Marcus began the slow process of rebuilding his relationship with his son. He started small, breakfast together on weekends, bedtime stories 3 nights a week, attending school events that he had previously been too busy to consider. Each interaction felt awkward at first, like learning a language he had once spoken fluently but had somehow forgotten. Sophia played a crucial role in this transition, though she never overstepped her boundaries or made Marcus feel inadequate. She simply created opportunities for father and son to connect. She would mention Tommy's achievements in casual conversation, suggest activities they might enjoy together, or find excuses to be elsewhere when Marcus arrived home, giving them space to develop their own rhythm. Marcus began to see Sophia in a different light as well. Her kindness toward Tommy wasn't just professional competence. It came from a genuine love for children and an intuitive understanding of what they needed to thrive. She was remarkably intelligent, offering insights about child development that rivaled those of the expensive child psychologist Marcus had consulted after Catherine's death. More than that, she possessed a quality that money couldn't buy and success couldn't teach: the ability to see the good in people and draw it out through patience and compassion. One evening in late November, Marcus arrived home to find the house filled with the warm aroma of baking. He followed the scent to the kitchen, where he discovered Tommy and Sophia covered in flour, laughing as they rolled out cookie dough. "We're making cookies for my class party tomorrow," Tommy announced proudly. "Sophia taught me how to make the shapes." Nice. Marcus looked at the slightly lopsided Christmas trees and stars scattered across the counter, each one decorated with careful attention by his son's small hands. He realized that this was the first time since Catherine's death that their home had felt like more than just a place to sleep. "They look perfect," he said, and meant it. "Want to help?" Tommy asked hopefully. For the next hour, Marcus found himself elbow-deep in cookie dough, listening to Tommy's endless chatter about his classmates, while Sophia guided them through the decorating process. She had a way of including Marcus in the activity without making him feel like an intruder, and gradually he began to relax into the simple pleasure of creating something with his hands alongside his son. As December arrived, Marcus noticed that the heaviness that had settled over their house like a permanent fog was finally beginning to lift. Tommy was thriving in ways that went beyond his academic improvement or his growing collection of friends. He was becoming confident, secure in the knowledge that he was loved and valued. More importantly, he was helping his father heal in ways that neither therapy nor time alone had accomplished. The transformation wasn't just in Tommy. Marcus found himself looking forward to coming home instead of dreading it. He began leaving the office earlier, not because he had less work to do, but because he had discovered something more important waiting for him. He started asking Sophia about her life, learning that she was taking evening classes to become a certified teacher, that she sent half her salary to her family in Colombia, that she had dreams of eventually opening a bilingual preschool for immigrant families. Their conversations began extending beyond Tommy's needs and schedules. Sophia had opinions about current events, insights about human nature, and a dry sense of humor that caught Marcus off guard. She challenged his assumptions in gentle ways, asking questions that made him think about his priorities and choices. She never lectured or judged, but her very presence in their lives was a constant reminder of what true success looked like: the ability to love and be loved in return. Christmas was approaching, and Marcus realized it would be their first since Catherine's death. The previous year, he had taken Tommy to his parents' house in Florida, desperate to avoid the traditions and memories that their own home contained. But this year felt different. This year, he wanted to create new memories while honoring this old ones. Marcus asked Sophia to help him plan a celebration that would be meaningful for Tommy, without being overwhelming for any of them. Together, they decorated the house with simple elegance, focusing on warmth rather than extravagance. They bought a tree that Tommy could help decorate, chose gifts that emphasized experience over expense, and planned a menu that included Catherine's favorite Christmas cookies, alongside new traditions they could build together. On Christmas Eve, as Marcus watched Tommy carefully hang ornaments on their tree while Sophia played soft carols on the piano, he felt something he had thought was lost forever. Peace, not the absence of sadness, but the presence of hope. The knowledge that healing was possible, that love could grow again even in soil that had been salted with grief. That night, after Tommy had gone to bed, Marcus found himself walking past his son's room just as he had months earlier. But this time, he wasn't trying to avoid connection. He was drawn to it. He paused at the doorway, not to eavesdrop, but to check on his sleeping child. What he saw made him smile. Tommy was fast asleep, his face peaceful in the soft glow of his nightlight. Beside his bed, clearly placed there by his own small hands, was a drawing he had made at school. It showed 3 figures standing in front of a house: a tall man labeled Daddy, a smaller figure labeled Me, and a woman with long dark hair labeled Sophia. Above them, in Tommy's careful 7-year-old handwriting, were the words, "My family." Marcus stood there for a long time, absorbing the simple truth his son had captured in crayon and paper. Somewhere along the way, without any of them planning it or discussing it, they had become a family. Not in the traditional sense, perhaps, but in the way that mattered most. They had become three people who loved and protected and supported each other. As he finally turned to go to his own room, Marcus caught sight of Sophia sitting in the living room, reading by the light of the Christmas tree. She looked up as his footsteps approached, and something in her expression told him she understood what he had discovered. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For saving us both." Sophia shook her head gently. "You saved yourselves. I just helped you remember how." Marcus knew in that moment that his feelings for Sophia had grown beyond gratitude, beyond professional appreciation, into something deeper and more complex. But he also knew that whatever was developing between them needed to be built on the foundation they had already created: respect, trust, and their shared love for Tommy. That night, as Marcus lay in bed reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this place, he realized that the prayer Sophia had taught Tommy had been answered in ways none of them could have anticipated. His heart wasn't hurting the way it used to. He was smiling again, genuinely and often. Most importantly, he had found his way back to being the father Tommy deserved. The billionaire who had thought he had lost everything had discovered that he still had the capacity for the only wealth that truly mattered: love. And in the quiet sanctuary of his son's prayers and a woman's gentle wisdom, Marcus Blackwood had found his way home. But the road to redemption wasn't without its obstacles. 3 weeks after Christmas, Marcus faced his first real test as a father when Tommy came home from school with tears streaming down his face. Marcus found him in his room, curled up on his bed, refusing to talk about what had happened. For a moment, Marcus felt the familiar urge to retreat, to call for Sophia to handle the situation. But something had changed in him. Instead of backing away, he sat on the edge of Tommy's bed and waited. When his son finally looked up with Catherine's eyes full of pain, Marcus felt his heart break and mend simultaneously. "Jeremy Thompson said, 'I don't have a real family because my mom is dead, and my dad doesn't love me,'" Tommy whispered. "He said Sophia is just paid to pretend to care about us." The words hit Marcus like a sledgehammer. He pulled Tommy into his arms, feeling his son's small body shake with sobs against his chest. For the first time since Catherine's death, Marcus knew exactly what to say and do. "Tommy, look at me," he said gently, tilting his son's chin up. "Jeremy Thompson doesn't know anything about our family. He doesn't know that every morning when I wake up, the first thing I think about is you. He doesn't know that when I'm in boring meetings, I count the minutes until I can come home and hear about your day. And he definitely doesn't know that I love you more than all the money and all the banks in the whole world." Tommy's crying began to slow as he listened to his father's words. "But what about Sophia? Is she just pretending?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "Sophia came into our lives when we needed her most. She could have just done her job and gone home every day. But instead, she chose to love us. That's not something you can fake, son. Love isn't about being paid or having the same last name. Love is about choosing to care for someone every single day, even when it's hard." "Like how she prays for you every night?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "She still does that?" Tommy nodded solemnly. "Every night. She says healing takes time, but love makes it happen faster." That evening, after Tommy had gone to bed reassured and peaceful, Marcus found Sophia in the kitchen preparing his lunch for the next day. It was a small gesture she had started weeks ago, ensuring he ate properly during his busy days at the office. "Tommy told me about the prayers," Marcus said quietly. Sophia's hands stilled on the sandwich she was wrapping. "I hope that's all right. I know you're not particularly religious, but—" "Why?" Marcus interrupted. "Why do you pray for me?" Sophia turned to face him, her dark eyes serious and thoughtful. "Because when I first came here, I saw a man who was drowning in his own grief. You had everything the world says should make you happy, but you were disappearing a little more each day. Tommy was disappearing too, trying to be invisible so he wouldn't add to your pain." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "In my country, we have a saying, El amor no se mendiga, se siembra. Love is not begged for, it is planted. I could see the love you had for Tommy buried under all that hurt. I just prayed that you would find the strength to let it grow again." Marcus stepped closer, drawn by her honesty and the gentle strength that had been quietly holding his family together. "And now? Now I pray for your happiness. I pray that you'll forgive yourself for being human. I pray that you'll see what I see when I look at you." "What do you see?" "A good man who lost his way for a while but never lost his heart." Standing there in the soft light of the kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of Sophia's care in every perfectly organized detail, Marcus understood that he was falling in love with this remarkable woman. Not because she had saved him or fixed his relationship with his son, but because she had seen who he could be and loved him into becoming that person again. The realization terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. It had been over 2 years since he had allowed himself to feel anything beyond grief and responsibility. The idea of opening his heart again, of risking loss and pain, seemed almost impossibly brave. But as the weeks passed, Marcus found that love wasn't something he could control or prevent. It grew in the spaces between their conversations, in the shared glances over Tommy's head, in the way Sophia's face lit up when he came home early to surprise them. It was present in her laughter when Tommy told elaborate stories about his day, in her patient teaching as she helped the boy with his homework, in her quiet strength during the difficult moments that still came. Tommy, with the intuitive wisdom of children, seemed to sense the changing dynamic between the adults in his life. One Saturday morning in February, as they were making pancakes together, he looked up at Marcus with a serious expression. "Daddy, do you love Sophia?" Marcus nearly dropped the spatula he was holding. "What makes you ask that, son?" "Because you smile different when she's here, like how you used to smile at Mommy in the pictures." The observation was so astute and innocent that Marcus felt his eyes well up. He knelt down to Tommy's level, meeting his son's gaze directly. "Yes, I do love her. How do you feel about that?" Tommy considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. "I think Mommy would be happy. She told me once that love is like sunshine. There's always enough for everyone who needs it." "You remember that?" "I remember lots of things about Mommy. Sophia says that's good, that we should keep the happy memories in our hearts forever." Marcus hugged his son tightly, marveling at the wisdom of both the women who had shaped this remarkable little boy. Catherine's love lived on in Tommy's generous heart, while Sophia's influence was evident in his emotional intelligence and capacity for forgiveness. That evening, after Tommy was asleep, Marcus found the courage to have the conversation he had been rehearsing for weeks. He found Sophia in the living room, grading papers from her evening education classes. "Sophia, we need to talk." She looked up with concern, immediately setting aside her work. "Is everything all right? Is it about Tommy?" "It's about us." Marcus sat down across from her, suddenly feeling as nervous as a teenager asking someone to prom. "I know this complicates everything. I know you work for me and that there are professional boundaries we should probably maintain, but I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just gratitude." Sophia's expression was unreadable, but she didn't look away. "I'm in love with you," Marcus continued. "Not because you saved my relationship with Tommy, though you did. Not because you brought life back into this house, though you did that too. I love you because of who you are. Your kindness, your strength, your wisdom, your faith. I love the way you see the world and the way you help me see it too." For a long moment, Sophia was quiet. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, but steady. "Marcus, what you're feeling might be—" "Don't," he interrupted gently. "Don't tell me it's just gratitude or confusion or loneliness. I'm 42 years old. I've been married. I've been in love before, and I know the difference between needing someone and loving them. I love you, Sophia. The question is whether you could ever feel the same way about me." Sophia stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered garden where she and Tommy had planted vegetables the previous spring. "You want to know what I see when I look at you now?" she asked without turning around. "Tell me." "I see a man who chose to love his son more than his pain. I see someone who had the courage to change when change seemed impossible. I see the person I've been falling in love with for months, even though I tried not to." She turned back to face him, tears glistening in her eyes. "But Marcus, if we do this, if we try to build something real between us, it can't be about saving each other or filling empty spaces. It has to be about choosing each other every day because we want to, not because we need to." Marcus stood and walked to her, taking her hands in his. "I choose you, Sophia. Not because I need saving, but because loving you makes me want to be the best version of myself. Not just for Tommy, not just for you, but for me too." When Sophia smiled through her tears and whispered, "I choose you too," Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since before tragedy had rewritten his life. Hope for a future filled with joy instead of just survival. Their first kiss was gentle and tentative, flavored with tears and promises and the sweet relief of finally acknowledging what had been growing between them for months. When they broke apart, Marcus rested his forehead against hers, breathing in the scent of her hair and the reality of this moment. "What do we tell Tommy?" Sophia asked. "The truth," Marcus replied, "that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose, and that love is big enough for all of us." 6 months later, on a warm Saturday morning in August, Marcus woke up in a house that felt completely transformed. The same marble floors and expensive art remained, but now they were backdrop to a life filled with laughter, conversation, and the comfortable chaos of a real family. He could hear Tommy and Sophia in the kitchen, probably making the elaborate breakfast they had planned for his birthday. At 43, Marcus had more than he had ever dreamed possible. A son who adored him, a woman who loved him for exactly who he was, and the hard-won knowledge that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought or sold. As he got dressed, Marcus caught sight of himself in the mirror and was startled by what he saw. The gray pallor was gone from his skin. The deep lines of constant stress had softened. Most remarkably, his eyes held light again, the spark of a man who had learned to live instead of just survive. Downstairs, Tommy launched himself into Marcus's arms with the enthusiasm of a child who had never doubted his place in his father's heart. Sophia emerged from the kitchen wearing flour in her hair and a smile that made Marcus's chest tight with love. "Happy birthday, my love," she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him while Tommy giggled at their display of affection. "Thank you," Marcus said, pulling both of them close, "for everything." As they sat around the breakfast table, eating slightly burned pancakes and perfectly prepared joy, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A year ago, he had been a man who measured success in stock prices and acquisition deals. Today, he measured it in his son's laughter, in Sophia's contentment, in the way their home had become a sanctuary instead of a monument. The little boy who once asked God to heal his daddy's heart had gotten his wish in ways none of them could have imagined, and the maid who had taught that boy to pray had become the answer to prayers Marcus hadn't even known he was allowed to make. In the end, Marcus Blackwood discovered that true wealth wasn't measured in billions or buildings or board positions. It was measured in moments like this, in perfect pancakes shared with perfect people, love that had grown from the ashes of loss, and the quiet miracle of a heart that had learned to hope again. The billionaire had finally learned the most valuable. Lesson of all, that home isn't a place you buy, it's a feeling you build. One prayer, one choice, one moment of courage at a time.